Okay, so we've got these applications that we're going to be going over today. We've got iron, rock salt, borax, and holy water. Those are the code names. Thank you, John,
You're welcome.
for blinding these for us today. We're looking to select someone for the position of lead. Now, before we jump in here, I've just realized that I mentioned only one of the two reasons why we're going to be doing this. The other reason we're doing this is so that you can observe some of the comments that are made about strengths and weaknesses of these applications. So I would strongly encourage you to take some notes and be thinking about how you can use some of this feedback to strengthen and prepare your own application materials. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with just a quick ranking of these applications. John, you're going to scribe for us?
This part.
Okay, I've asked you to rank these from 1 to 4, 1 being a top pick, your strongest fit for this position, and 4 being the weakest. Felipe, would you start us off and kind of tell us what you're thinking?
Yeah, so it was really hard because my top 1 is actually like my top 2 because they're pretty similar, they're very equal when it comes to the level of the application.
Okay.
But I needed to make a decision and I took a few factors to make the decision. So I'll go with iron first, rock salt second, and borax third, and holy water fourth.
Okay.
Okay, good. John, how did you rank them?
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Okay, so we've got iron in the top spot, rock salt, then borax with holy water coming in behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mackenzie, your rankings.
I did iron,
Okay.
rock salt, holy water, and borax.
Okay.
So you just flipped the last two.
Flip the last two. So I guess I get to be the one to throw the wrench in things this
Do
time.
you do everything differently?
Because I did rock salt, number 1, then iron, then holy water, and then borax.
Okay. I'm not the one that's dramatically off this time.
Not this time. Okay, so let's start with, should we start with our top 2 then?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
go through those and let's talk a little bit about them because it looks like we've got 3 votes for iron as our top spot and rock salt as the solid second. Let's just talk strengths and weaknesses of each of
Can I go first then?
these. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, so when we asked like custom certification for iron, I really like that he mentioned, or her, I don't know who the person is, mentioned a lot of like volunteer experiences. Like, you know, I was a secretary, as a president in council in my high school, and I am in first year of the leadership program. I was responsible for the logistics of leading a crew to set up, take down, you know. Like have some experience with team, have like some volunteer experience, like a person that didn't volunteer to serve, like expecting to get anything out of it. I think it was a really strong attitude for the person. And when it was asked like 3 things, I like that they mentioned I would like to have the opportunity for personal growth as a lead, and that's one of the things that we look to provide when we open up leadership position. And the third thing, I would like to make people happy when they come to work. But I kind of like, but how? You know, you know how didn't explain why. It was a little bit off on that. I think it was weak. Besides that, I really like the 3 things to accomplish for this position in the library. It says I would like to work towards find ways to get people to enjoy their reception time. You know, it was a little bit kind of like, you know, explain how, but that's.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, and you keep coming back to that in your comments, that it's one thing to say I'm going to make people happy, but it's important for us to know how you plan to go about doing that, because we'd like to see some solid application there. We've had problems in the past with applicants who have big ideas about how to make people happy, but we can't buy a hot dog machine and put it behind the front counter.
Yep.
You know, we have to have It's I think a stronger case if we have concrete examples of how you're going to do that. You know, I'm going to learn patrons' names and speak to them by name, or I'm going to, these kinds of things.
Yeah, there was a few. There was a few things that the person said I want to do it, but didn't explain how. I'm not an English major, but I noticed a huge mistake on the style of communication part. Like finish with a dot and just throw a word there that doesn't have any sense, and the word sense, you know, it was just like a lack of attention on the application. I think it was weak as well, the part that say mention a situation where I took correction from a counsel or from a co-worker. The person explained it but didn't say what they learned from it, you know, and those are things that I think we should look for. But this part over here, I loved it. I just loved it.
Which part are you on?
Describe a situation where I was required to give correction to a co-worker or supervisor. So this person really applies the SARA principle, you know, where they have a situation, they had an action, they have a result, they have an application. This person really described like I'm gonna just rephrase how he or she finished it. It says here, once it was finished, I printed out and I walked her through it. So she was teaching her supervisor something. After I got a digital copy of the cheat sheet, you know, on her desk, I didn't immediately eliminate the problem. I didn't immediately eliminate the problem, but with time, we got very good at this process. So it's someone that took a problem, solved it, figured out how to solve the process, trained somebody else, and kept improving it. And I loved it. So
I think that's a good, strong section from this application. John McKenzie, what do you see as particular strengths here? You're fighting for this candidate. Why should we take them on as a lead?
I think Felipe mentions a lot of the same things that I would have, but the one thing that I would also mention is even though they don't give descriptors of how they want to do certain things, the attitude in which they portray it makes me believe they see leadership as a service, and I think that's a huge strength. When I see applications that see the crew as exactly the same as them, that's the person I want to be a lead, because I know I'm not going to be worried about them being overbearing, not understanding boundaries. They're going to do what they need to. At least that's what it feels like from their understanding. There were just a couple things they said that weren't bad, that just didn't really connect with what they're actually going to do.
Can you give us an example of that?
I'd like to find new activities or ways to draw patrons to the library. You don't do that as a lead. I mean, good that you want that, but not really practical.
Right.
So that was one thing that could have been better. And, you know, not that this is bad, but I hear about the spirit of the library all the time. It's kind of just fluff at this point.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I agree. In that particular section, I actually flagged with red flags the first point that they wanted to accomplish and the third. Because point number one is I'd like to work towards finding ways to get people to enjoy their reception time. Reception and security falls under a different stewardship. I mean, the leads obviously play a big role in that, but it's not their job to encourage attention at those areas. And I certainly don't feel like it's their job to make sure that people are enjoying their jobs.
Yeah,
That's the responsibility of individual employees, not necessarily the leader. And then, like you said, that third one, that would fall more under sort of a marketing
Which we don't have.
stewardship, which we simply don't have. And we don't expect our leads to go out and drum up business for the library. The second one, though, I can get behind that. I'd like to see everyone have deeper bonds with their coworkers. I think that is an area where the leads can have a direct influence.
It's one of the things I primarily try and focus to the leads. That it's not an official job of theirs, but one of the things I really think is important is they need to pull their teams together. The other thing that kind of stood out to me, well, actually in conflict with what Felipe said, even though I didn't really like their correction or counsel, they should have been more, but at the end they do somewhat specify, they just need to go into it more.
Yeah.
They say that they felt next time I feel confused, I knew I could ask. But still, even then it wasn't a ton. Ultimately, it felt like a very practical and good application. It feels like there's more they have to learn, and they're ready to learn. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mackenzie?
I was pretty conflicted between choosing iron and rock salt.
The same.
And so I still feel like I'm kind of at a point where I could flip either way, but I thought it was a really strong application. You can tell that the person took time and was thinking about the things that they were saying, not just like saying stuff, which I really liked. There were things that I saw that were kind of like weird, like bringing up Heavenly Father. I don't think that's a very professional, I mean we all love Heavenly Father, but I don't think it's very professional to bring it up in an application. There are a couple sections that I thought could have gone a little deeper. Probably the same thing with Felipe, the correctioner counsel, I think could have gone a little bit deeper and showed us a little bit more of what he was thinking or she was thinking. And I also thought that the responsibilities at the end was good, but it was kind of surface level for me. I don't know, I think when I read that question, I like want to see like what do they think the responsibility, like not just like the hard skill responsibilities, but like what does a lead do? Why are they important to the library? Like, why is this position important to you? And I feel like it just didn't quite meet that for me.
It's one thing to list the responsibilities and quite another thing to kind of get at what they mean to you. Is that kind of where you're headed?
Yeah.
There? 'Cause
yeah, it just didn't, totally.
I kind of wanted a little bit more like,
But why?
But
like,
why?
do you want this position? Like,
Right.
what are the responsibilities?
Should we add that to the question then? Because the question just says to name the responsibilities. I mean, yes, good if they go into it.
that might be something we could take a look at. Is,
Especially-
take a little bit of time to kind of make some connections with these responsibilities.
Especially because when we send out the application, we all send out like the responsibility. It's kind of like I can just copy and paste that here,
Right.
you
And
know,
we've
in that
gotten that
class.
before where people just
Yeah,
copy and
but
paste.
we don't want that, so
we're
we
wanting
need to
more than that.
more than that.
I made that note on borax here because the response to that same question is basically just ripped from the job description that I posted.
So actually,
So it doesn't show any thought.
I kind of cheated a little bit on this. I've taken out a few of the things so we can know if it's copy and pasting, because a few specific things will be left out.
Okay.
So
copy and pasting the job description
will not. As a matter of fact, it will just let us know that you copied and pasted it. So go ahead.
Okay. That would be an important thing to note, I would think.
But I thought his experience was super strong. Like
Yeah.
what we had kind of mentioned, the correction. Like
Yeah.
he saw an issue and then he found a solution, or she found a solution.
Tailored it for the person too.
And tailored it and really
Yeah.
showcased his or her abilities to find solutions rather than just like correct people, which I thought was like kind of a unique experience.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not. This is more about teaching than it is just telling people to do stuff right, which I thought was really powerful here. I also liked this one. I ranked this one higher because of the way that it feels like we just get the complete package when it comes to the correction and counsel part.
Yeah.
We're talking about what needed to be corrected, how it was corrected, why they did it that way, and what they learned from it.
Yep.
So this is a really solid example of how to package that question. My English brain absolutely loves that this is organized in paragraphs,
Yeah.
because paragraphs show a progression of thought. And they show an attention to detail that's demonstrated here in a far more powerful way than just saying, I have really good attention to detail, but then spelled detail wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that this is in short, concise paragraphs that actually do what paragraphs do, shows that a lot of thought and effort went into making this a well-rounded application.
Can I add something on that? I love this idea of paragraph too, but I also like I'm a bullet point person, you know.
Sure.
And when especially when it comes to custom certifications, I think it's really helpful maybe, you know, if the person lay down what they have accomplished and then a brief explanation of how that can apply to the job application.
Sure.
So, and that's the type of things that I've never seen in any application, except my own application, my position.
Okay.
So,
And I think there's questions where maybe that kind of a response is a little bit more appropriate.
yeah, sure.
The
I
one
believe
where
it.
it says courses, certifications, trainings, maybe
Previous
sort of a
experiences.
bullet-pointed resume kind of thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mackenzie.
I almost disagree respectfully.
Totally fine.
Just because I think it shows a lot of thought when somebody writes it in a paragraph form. Like it shows like almost more work, if that makes sense. So I disagree, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's a difference in how we
Yeah.
think. But.
It's just for different sections. I'm saying
Mhm.
like, for the rest, I think I can see a progression of thought. But when it comes to certification training, it's like a brief what it is, an explanation how it's applied to the job. Not have a thought behind it in application.
Yeah.
There's strengths to both. I think rock salt does great with the paragraphs, but a fear I have with it is it at times gets repetitive. So when you're in the paragraphs, if you're not careful with how you use them, it doesn't help the way you think it does. But on the other hand, bullet points don't either. If it's just the bullet points and the only
Yeah.
thing I see is that, I kind of feel like I'm reading a robot's response sometimes. But if they play it off right, it can still work. So it really depends on how they use it.
With this particular application, I think we see that in the appropriateness of the response to the question.
Yeah.
So for example, this first one, where...
Are we in rock salt now?
Yeah, he didn't say it, but-
That first question, I think, would be more appropriate as like a bullet point resume kind of thing. Because when we don't, then what we get is introductions and like this first part, in my life, in this job, and here at school. And it right off the bat, it sounds maybe more sacrament talky.
Yeah.
When really all I need there is like, are you CPR certified? Have you completed your certifications?
Yep.
The prerequisite, like you say, just kind of bing, 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 bing.
Uh-huh.
And then when we get down here into 3 things to personally accomplish, ways to accept correction and counsel, that definitely feels to me like it needs a little bit more focused thought in this kind of paragraph approach that Mackenzie's talking about.
Yeah.
If that was just bullet points, 3
Would-
things I want to accomplish.
It wouldn't
bam,
work
bam,
very
bam,
well.
I wouldn't feel like we're putting a lot of thought or effort into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Luckily, I like it. Rock salt doesn't say anything that makes me be like, oh, why'd you say that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of applications have really good stuff, but they'll say 1 or 2 things where you're like, well, you're tying an anchor to your foot.
I like on Holy Water.
Yeah.
Holy Water had some red flags for me.
Do we want to talk about holy water then?
Well, are we ready to talk about Holy Water?
I think we need
I
to
don't-
pick
I
something.
don't think we-
Decision between these 2?
You didn't tell us why you.
We haven't really
We haven't
really likes
we just need
rock
to pick
salt.
a one to talk about
Yeah.
because of the time.
So we just talked about rock salt.
A little bit.
We talk about.
We talked
iron.
about
Let's
iron,
talk about iron.
and then you
I
made
talked about rock salt.
like a little transition into rock salt and didn't tell any of us. We kind of caught on.
Yeah, and since you're the only one to pick rock salt,
Yeah.
Well,
what do you
there are
see there?
some- I mean, I voted for rock salt as my top pick.
yeah,
I think we all really liked rock salt. It's really
it's the
just
second one. Yeah.
it's hard to decide between the 2. What really slowed me down for rock salt at least is even though they give a lot, I feel like there's parts of it where they hint on things that I want to hear more about, and instead of hearing more about that, they go into a little bit of fluff, it feels like. So like for example, where they talk about they want to contribute to the overall atmosphere. I love how they're saying they want to contribute, they want to be a part of it, they don't want to create it. That's always a sign to me that they think there's not one there.
Are you talking about rock salt?
Mhm.
Rock salt does specifically say I would seek to create a positive work environment.
But they don't say how. Oh, do they say create? Oh, well.
I like it.
Earlier they just say overall. But like that, they talk about just experiences and they say really good things, but when I'm ready to hear more, like the analysis of this, instead it moves on to the next part.
So if we're taking into consideration the job that this is for,
Lead.
as a team lead,
Yes.
if we had to vote now today, which we do, we have to select one of these 4 to be our new lead.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping the job description itself in mind, which of these 2 would we feel more comfortable with putting into the lead chair?
Personally,
You know,
We still
I'll
good
vote
on
for.
iron?
I vote for iron.
I'd vote for iron. I think rock salt is good, and I would definitely want them as a lead. But if I have to choose between the 2, I would choose iron.
Kenzie?
I still feel pretty torn about it, honestly.
Okay.
Because I think that they would both be good,
Yeah.
based on application at least.
Mhm.
And so maybe for me, I would need to have, maybe or employee notes or something like that.
That makes a big difference once we know the name.
Determine.
Okay.
Yeah.
For you 2, why would you be more comfortable with iron? Because I think what I'm seeing here is that we've got 2 well-qualified candidates,
Mhm.
but they're qualified for very different reasons.
Okay, for me, I would say just because when I went through the application for rock salt, like I said, it was an application that somebody took time to do it. You can see the develop of this application, everything response that this person made. But I missed a lot of the points of like, what are you gonna accomplish? Like, what is like kind of like your skill sets, your leadership mind, you know, that type of thing. The person might be, like McKay said, you might need to kind of like take in consideration who those people are and what they can bring, you know. But I'll definitely go with Iron for now. In fact, that they both have like the same level. It's just like a few things on Iron that really draw my attention to it. When I said about on the paragraph describe a situation where we was required to give correction, I think that was like nailed a leadership position, like with the, I like to say the SARA principle: situation, application, response, and situation, action, response, and application. It was really well defined over there. So.
Iron spells out in the beginning their preliminary experience, and the way that they spell it out shows to me that they kind of understand how to deal with the team already. So I feel like there's a little trust I feel there. But that's not really what tips me. What tips me is just it seems like they have a lot that they understand about leadership in serving others, which is something I really like, but that they also feel like they have a lot to learn. So this is a person that I feel like I'll get them started, but they will keep themselves going, which could be true for Rock Salt too, but Iron was the one that pushed it for me. So.
Okay. We're still going to make you choose, Mackenzie.
I can see what they're saying, and I could get behind Iron for sure. I think that Rock Salt is good, but maybe what they're saying, like a little bit more fluff, maybe they could have made it more consolidated. And I think they had good things to say, but Iron was very, kind of like a good mix between like not too scant, not too much, and wording things in a good, concise way. So I might decide on Iron for right now.
So that's kind of more of our decision. Do we still want to talk about the other two so they can have good examples for things that maybe concern us a little?
I think it would be good to know why these two fell out of the running so quickly. So we're going to move forward with Iron then.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. We'll find out who that is here in just a second. And hopefully it won't change our opinions much. If we get in there and find out that Iron is actually like under a warning contract or something, we'll discuss that.
And then we gotta rediscuss it again.
That's true.
So can I just start off on these ones with holy water in particular?
Yeah, let's go there.
Borax obviously was very scanty in terms of information, just not a lot there.
I agree.
To support any of these arguments that they're making. Holy water, I think, takes a lot more time to flesh things out. But there's a couple of red flags to me. One of the things that he wants to accomplish for this position is to establish a culture that permeates the library. We've got to be careful of that because the culture has been established.
He says further established, but still, even the use of established still worries me.
Yeah, and this might be a matter of semantics, it's word choice, but still.
But he says stuff later that correlates back to that.
Right.
If it was just that, I would be like, whatever, I'll let it go.
And there's also like a presumptuous attitude almost of like when I get this.
When I get this position.
I will. And
I wrote that.
kind of presumptuousness there. And maybe the person does feel humble about it and it's just like a way of saying it and trying to get across his point or her point. But it comes across as very
Cocky.
presumptuous and
I
like
know I've
I'm
got
going
it.
to get this.
I know I
I've
got
it in
the
the
job
bag.
right. Yeah.
Which is odd when the last line of the application says, "I do not understand all the
Yeah.
responsibilities necessary."
Oh yeah, that was unfortunate.
And I think that's one thing that we need to learn. We can definitely learn from is it's not good practice in an interview to say, "I don't have a clue what you're talking about, but I can learn."
Yeah.
It's not a very convincing argument.
And especially when the job description describes
It's supposed
what
to
it
be-
is about, right?
the job
So-
And they work with the lead. They
And
have
you
the chance to
And
figure it
you
out.
walk, yeah,
And you
you
can put thought
yeah.
into it, like what more does a lead do
Yeah.
than what I see, like what other important factors? Oh, they're like really important to creating team unity. Okay, like that maybe is a responsibility. Like they can. It just feels like they didn't put a lot of thought into that part.
Similarly, the two situations where they talk about correction and counsel.
Oh, yeah.
The first one is just very, very broad.
Yeah.
The second one is similarly broad. What we need there is concrete examples. And the question as it reads now on the application is describe a situation where you were required to give correction or counsel to a peer. Oftentimes that's something that people completely miss. It's easy to write about times when you've taken correction and counsel from someone that you look up to. Here at the library, we work peer to peer. And that connection has got to be established. The second one in particular, tell me about when you were required to give correction to a coworker, and they put, well, it happens so often that
I wrote that
don't
here.
know which one to talk about. That's
Concerning.
That's a little bit concerning. We don't want a lead to be someone that we know going into it, we're going to have to constantly be correcting.
Or it's just like, think harder then. Like, you have time to write an application. Think harder and come up with an instance.
Yes.
That
and also like,
too.
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I feel like for especially these two applications, I just wrote straight. They did not answer the question.
Yes.
You asked
Yeah.
like, give me a situation you took correction, and if they, oh, there are many situations I have took correction. They are always good. I always learn something new. But what? The person didn't describe like, what was the situation, what happened, and what we learned. So for me, like especially for holy water and also Barak, they did not answer the question. The question hasn't been answered, and we cannot like get a feel.
Or they
of
answer
how
a
this
different
person-
question.
Yeah,
That's even worse.
yeah.
When you say something that was not correlated and you don't even tie it back. But ultimately, even though borax had, I felt like not enough information, I still put holy water lower because even though I don't know a lot about borax, I see, even though there's goodness in holy water, there are enough things that concern me that I wouldn't want to take it on as it is.
As it is now.
Yeah. That's what you're saying.
And these are all things that can be addressed as we work with these individuals and help them, especially as we give feedback on this process and this kind of thing. These are things that can be addressed, that can be fixed in an application, and it may even be an opportunity to do some additional training and some shadowing and that kind of thing,
Absolutely.
so that we are helping to get these principles into their thinking, and it will show up then in their application as they go.
Absolutely.
So are we decided here then?
Yeah.
Do you want everything to be revealed?
Okay, yes, this is the fun part.
This is the really fun part where everything can change.
So tell us who these people are.
So, number one was my first application for lead.
Iron,
No,
this is yours?
Kidding.
Okay,
That was when you hadn't met me yet, and I was gone.
right?
And
Okay, I
this was
wanna-
your
I
first
wanna
exposure to
exchange
me.
it.
There's a fun story.
Kidding, Jen.
There's a fun story behind that. Ask me after.
It's a great story.
Okay, so this was John.
That was me. Number two was my protege, Mackenzie.
What?
This was Mackenzie's. Okay.
Are we the only one who didn't know who the patient was?
You didn't?
It's been so long.
Like, I have no idea. I wasn't here for this
You didn't
process.
Yeah.
Well, that's right, you weren't
You
on
weren't
this
there
council
for
at that
that.
time.
Now I know what Mackenzie back to side.
So now we know two things, right?
That I'm selected as the superior.
That brother also forgets.
He convinced us to
It was close. It was very close.
So who have we got here with holy water?
Holy water is Zach. This was actually his first application, and on his third, he kept a lot of the really same things and just bolstered them instead of using the things that concerned us.
Now pay particular attention to what he just said. This was his first application, but on his third, that's when things started to go right for Zach. Zach applied for this position 3 times and improved his application.
Every time.
And his last one was really good.
It was
Yeah, I
incredible.
remember that.
It blew us
I
out
think
of the
it was
water.
like top 1, right?
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
really good learning experience.
Because I think we opened position for 3 leads at that time.
And he was my first choice.
I think 3 of the 4 of
Yeah.
us voted him top choice.
That's what we don't
The
reveal
other
first
one
all
would
the
have been
time.
second.
hmm
So borax.
Borax is, I think Rachel only applied once.
Rachel Bice.
Rachel Bice. So I think this
Rachel
is-
also applied 3 times.
Shall
She
apply
applied
three?
3 times.
Then this would have been one of her earlier ones.
This has to be one of the good ones.
Very good. Very good.
Because I remember she also applied for training.
Yes.
Yeah.
She applied for a couple of different ones, and then just kind of took this and
Adapted.
adapted it, got some feedback, made some changes,
Yeah.
and eventually that got her to where she is, so that's great. Well, John, won again.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for just a few few minutes for questions. Do you have any questions about the process or questions about strengthening your materials that we can help out with? Anderson, go ahead.
Yeah, so first, this application, do you do it online?
You do. In fact, if you'll turn right here to your handy TV screen, I've got this pulled up here somewhere.
There you go.
So this in-house application form is available on Sling.
We put it out every time that we say there's an application.
So we'll release this online. What you do is you come in and fill out your name, you select the information as it prompts you to, and then you'll select the one that you're applying for, and it will take you to the specific application for that position. Each one is a little bit different. We've adjusted the questions slightly so that you're answering questions that would be more specific to that particular job. But it's the same basic format. You'll get a field. We'd like you to spend right around 300 words kind of explaining your answers and that kind of thing. But you fill this all out online and submit it. Once it's submitted, 3 of the 4 of us do not see the submissions until the night before we go in to hold a council like this one. So, for example, Mackenzie's going to be leaving us at the end of the semester. She's graduating. She'll still participate in the council that selects her replacement, but she won't see who the candidates are. They'll go to John, and John will blind them for us, and then the 3 of us are primarily the ones that will discuss those. If it was a lead position, then John would not see them. They'd go to Mackenzie, and she would take care of all the blinding so that he doesn't have any bias going into that meeting. And we don't see the names of the applicants until after we've been through the first round of this process. So I have to be a really good boy and just stay out of it. I have access to it.
It's hard.
But I have to stay out of it and not peek at who's applying.
There's also the second round though. So after the first one's done, the names are revealed, and then we do more discussion. We look at their notes, things the leads have said, and what we feel their strengths are. Because that can change it. Kenzie could have been bumped up once we knew it was her. It just depends. If I had done something really stupid right before the application, I could be immediately out. So it really just
If
depends.
you keyed my card the night before, then we would go, oh.
That was a
let's
surprise.
talk some more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
does that help answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Suzanne?
I have a question. When you were saying like copying and pasting, I understand that that's not a good thing to copy and paste. But sometimes I will look for words that they're looking for, and I will take that word, but not like copy and paste. Is that really a bad thing? Would you rather that you use another word that describes the same?
I would say that the reason I've put it that way is because if we're just seeing copying and pasting, they're not answering the question. They're just transmitting information. So if they're putting in the same things in their own way, that's great. I don't care. It's not going to hold them back. If they're copying and pasting, it is. But what we want to see there is more than just the tasks.
Also,
Go ahead.
okay, so let's say it's not like a problem you rephrase it, but it's like you get the job description, you rephrase in a way that you understand what the job is, and you also link that to your own experiences. For example, let's say you're applying for a leadership position.